Story 1. The Man in the Parking Lot. I was 20 years old, living just outside of Dallas, Texas, when I got my very first part-time job at a grocery store. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid for gas and books. At first, everything felt normal. I'd clock in, bag groceries, chat with regular customers, just a typical routine. But then, about a month in, I noticed something strange. There was this man, mid-30s, maybe early 40s. He started showing up constantly, always in the evenings, always during my shift. He didn't buy much, sometimes just a pack of gum or a single soda. But no matter how long the line was, he made sure he always came to my register. The first couple times I didn't think much of it. He'd smile, make small talk, ask me about college. I figured maybe he was just lonely. But after a while, I realized something unsettling. He remembered everything. My school, my schedule, even the exact nights I usually closed the store. And the scariest part? I never told him any of that. It was a Thursday night when things first started to feel wrong. I was closing the register, counting bills, when I looked up and saw him. He wasn't in line, he wasn't shopping, he was just standing by the end of the aisle, staring directly at me. When our eyes met, he smiled in this slow, unnatural way and mouthed something I couldn't quite make out. Then, as quickly as he appeared, he turned and walked out of the store without buying a single thing. For the rest of the shift, I couldn't shake that image. His face half lit by the fluorescent lights, smiling like he knew something I didn't. A week later, I had to close alone. Usually another cashier stayed with me, but that night it was just me and the manager in the back office. Around 10:15, I walked to the parking lot, fumbling with my keys. That's when I noticed a shadow way across the lot. A man leaning against a lamppost. He wasn't smoking, wasn't looking at his phone. He was just watching me. The lot was almost empty, and the silence was suffocating. Every instinct told me it was him. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I froze for a moment, pretending to dig in my purse, trying to see if maybe it was just a random guy waiting for a ride. But then I saw it. That same smile, the slow, crooked grin from the store. I darted back inside, pretending I forgot something. My manager ended up walking me to my car, and when we looked back toward the lamppost, the man was gone. But as I drove home, headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. Close, too close. At first I brushed it off as paranoia, but after 3 turns, the car was still behind me. Every time I slowed, it slowed. Every time I sped up, it sped up. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I pulled into a random gas station, pretending I needed to fill up. The car pulled in two pumps over. I finally got a good look. It was him, sitting in the driver's seat, staring at me over the steering wheel, like he'd been waiting for this moment all along. I didn't even get out of my car. I pretended to check my phone, then quickly drove off. I made 3 random turns, weaving through side streets until I finally lost him. That night my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Drive safe, that was a close one." My blood turned to ice. He knew my number. I blocked the number, but it didn't matter. The next day, another text came from a different number. "Red looks good on you. Wear that dress again." I had worn a red dress that morning. That meant he had been watching me leave my apartment. So I told my parents, I told the police, but without proof, all they could do was document the complaint. 2 nights later, I was home alone. I was brushing my teeth when I heard something faint, a tapping sound. I turned off the faucet. Silence. Then it came again. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from my bedroom window. Tap. I walked down the hall slowly, my heart slamming against my ribs. And when I pulled back the curtain, my worst fear came true. He was standing in the yard, head tilted back, staring straight at me. His hand raised, fingertip tapping the glass. I screamed and ran for my phone. By the time police arrived, he was gone, just like that. No footprints, no sign of him at all. But on the window screen, there was a smudge, a greasy fingerprint. The officer dusted it, but when the report came back, there wasn't enough detail to match anyone. It was like he'd slipped through the cracks of the system, untouchable, unstoppable. I quit my job the very next morning, moved back in with my parents until I could transfer schools. I never saw him again, not in person. But sometimes late at night, my phone buzzes from an unknown number. No words, just a single photo. A blurry shot of me walking to class or unlocking my car or standing in line for coffee. No matter how many times I change my number, somehow he always finds it. Story 2. The Boy Who Wouldn't Stop. I was 14 years old, a freshman in high school in Columbus, Ohio, when I made the mistake of talking to a boy named Ethan. At first, he seemed harmless, a little awkward, quiet, but nice enough. We hung out a couple times after school, texted late into the night, and I thought it was just a silly teenage crush. But within weeks, Ethan's attention went from sweet to suffocating. If I didn't answer his texts within 5 minutes, he'd blow up my phone with dozens of messages. Or, "Why are you ignoring me?" Or, "Are you mad at me?" At first, I brushed it off as clingy, but when I tried to put distance between us, when I told him I didn't want to be more than friends, he snapped. The next day at school, people started whispering. Ethan was telling everyone I was his girlfriend, showing kids screenshots of our texts, making up stories about us kissing. Suddenly, my whole grade believed I was secretly dating him. I blocked his number. 2 days later, a new one appeared, then another, and another. He'd text from any number he could get, sending me things like, "I saw you at your locker. You look so pretty in blue. Don't ignore me, I'll find you." I started dreading walking home, dreading even looking at my phone. One afternoon, I was halfway home when I felt it, eyes on me. I glanced behind, and there he was, Ethan, riding his bike slowly down the sidewalk, never breaking eye contact. I sped up, cutting through yards and side streets, but when I finally reached my front door and looked back, he was standing across the street, watching. That night, my phone buzzed with a new number. "Nice house," I told my parents. My dad called Ethan's parents, but they brushed it off as puppy love. My school counselor told me, "Boys will be boys." Even the principal seemed more annoyed than alarmed. But I knew. I felt it in my chest. This wasn't innocent. This was dangerous. And a few nights later, Ethan proved me right. My parents had gone out for dinner. I was alone, curled up in my room, scrolling on my phone. That's when a text came through. Cute pajamas. I froze, because I was wearing pajamas, pink shorts and a t-shirt, and there was no way he could know that unless he was watching me. I turned toward my window, and my heart stopped. Ethan was in my backyard, standing in the dark, staring up at me. He lifted his hand and started tapping the glass, slowly, deliberately. My whole body locked up in terror. When I screamed, he didn't even flinch. He just kept tapping, like he was testing the glass, daring me to come closer. By the time my dad got home and ran outside, Ethan was gone. But the screen on my window had been sliced open with a pocket knife. The police finally got involved, but all they did was warn him. They couldn't prove intent. They told me to document everything and call if he showed up again. So I lived in constant fear. Walking home, I'd hear bike tires behind me. In the cafeteria, I'd catch him staring at me from across the room. My friends stopped hanging out with me because they were scared he'd target them too. It was like he wanted to isolate me, to make me his. The worst night of all was a Saturday. My parents had gone shopping and I was upstairs about to fall asleep when I heard a click, like someone trying to unlatch the window. I froze, staring at the shadows against my curtain, and then 3 soft knocks. Not on the glass, but from inside the house. I bolted from my room, sprinted down the stairs and locked myself in the bathroom. I called 911, sobbing into the phone. When officers searched the house, they didn't find him, but they did find the back door unlocked. Ethan's parents eventually pulled him out of school, and not long after they moved. I thought that was the end. But years later, when I was 19, a Facebook request appeared on my screen. It was from him, no profile picture, just a name. I blocked it instantly, but sometimes, when I walk home at night, I swear I can hear the faint sound of bike tires behind me. And I know, deep down, that one day he'll be back. He'll be... Story 3. The Neighbor Upstairs. I was 23, living alone for the first time in a small apartment complex outside Portland, Oregon. The building was old, creaky, with paper-thin walls, but the rent was cheap and I liked the independence. My apartment was on the 2nd floor, right below an older guy named Mr. Harris. He was friendly at first, always waving in the hallway, asking about my day. But after a while, I started noticing little things about him that didn't feel right. Every night around 2 or 3 a.m., I'd hear footsteps creaking across the ceiling, back and forth like pacing. Sometimes I'd even hear faint whispers, like he was talking to someone, except he lived alone. Then one morning I woke up to find my front door unlocked. I brushed it off thinking maybe I was careless, but the next night it happened again. I knew I had locked it. Weird things started disappearing. A pair of socks, a mug, a tube of chapstick. Then creepier things. A framed photo of me and my best friend. A notebook I kept by my bed. At first I thought maybe I was just forgetful. Maybe I misplaced them. But then one night I found something in my kitchen drawer that didn't belong to me. A cigarette butt. The kind Mr. Harris always smoked. I started sleeping with a chair jammed under my doorknob. I even put tiny strips of tape across my doorframe, so if anyone opened the door, I'd know. One morning I came home from work to find the tape ripped clean in half, and the chair was on the other side of the room. Someone had been inside. I went straight to the landlord, but he shrugged it off, said the locks were fine, said maybe I just forgot. When I insisted, he sighed and said, "Look, Mr. Harris has lived here for 15 years, he's harmless. But harmless people don't sneak into your apartment. Harmless people don't leave cigarette butts in your drawer." That night I pushed my dresser against the bedroom door before I tried to sleep. At 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of wood scraping, slowly, painfully, like something heavy being dragged across the floor. My heart jumped into my throat. I sat there in the dark, listening. The sound wasn't coming from the ceiling, it was coming from inside my apartment. I grabbed my phone, fumbling to dial 911. But before I could press call, a low creak echoed down the hallway. Someone was standing outside my bedroom door. I could hear the floorboards bending under their weight. I pressed my back against the dresser, holding my breath, every muscle in my body locked. And then, a voice. Low, hoarse, whispering through the crack in the door. "You left your window unlocked," I screamed. The dresser shook violently as he tried to push against it. I dialed 911, sobbing into the phone, begging them to come. After what felt like hours, but was only minutes, I heard sirens outside. The pounding stopped. Silence. When officers finally broke down my door, my bedroom was empty, but the window in the living room was wide open, curtain fluttering in the night air. They searched the building and found nothing. Mr. Harris wasn't in his apartment. His bed was made, his fridge was empty, and his closet was bare. It was like he had vanished overnight. But in the crawl space above his unit, officers found something that made my stomach turn. A pile of my missing belongings, my mug, my notebook, my photo, all neatly arranged in a little shrine. I moved out the next day, packed everything I owned into my car, and never looked back. But sometimes, even years later, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I can hear it again. The sound of footsteps above my ceiling. Slow, patient, waiting, and I'll never forget his last words. "You left your window unlocked.